That was quick, wasn't it, you demons? Come on. That was quick, wasn't it, you demons? Say the December, the 21st, no matter what year, it is a Luciferian time for sacrificing children, animals, pagan rituals, really. If you go back in biblical times, I will endeavour to show the audio. The globalist, the UK, first of all, let's go into UK version of mainstream so-called corporations portraying their dictation or correction, dictatorial, no, another word, control of the matrix. A winter solstice. Ironic, isn't it? Listen to this. About claim Christmas is pagan. Its history in biblical years. How Christianity turned it all round. There's no true date of the birth of Jesus Christ, our Lord, our Saviour. The Luciferian demons hate the fact. Let me just get into the chat. Unless they've had this already. Oh, they've had this phone already. They do not like me telling the truth. I read the comments on that one. We'll have to go into it. First of all, it's going to okay. Back brothers. Give a sacrifice, a system on it. Use money. Use money. So, isn't it interesting how they hack into my phone straight away. Humanity is waking up. But I don't know how straight away. Let's just see, this is what streaming. Yeah, okay, I know you're doing. I just have my phone. Isn't it interesting? Right, so therefore, I know you can hear, I'm going to play this audio of a very intriguing information. I'm going to play this. Until I can find it. Very demonic. The reptilian calling demonic. Let's see if I can find it. It's interesting, they're so desperate to block this line. They have to do the ritual abuses. Okay.
Parlementaires, désuets, des périmés, insultez-moi le parlementarisme. Qu'est-ce que c'est que les cas? Continuez de faire. Messieurs, je n'ai plus rien à dire. J'ai eu conscience de vous dire quelques vérités, peut-être désagréables mais utiles. Et ce ne sont pas quelques interruptions qui m'arrêteront.
Sadly, I can't find the video now. So, who is behind running the dark occultist agenda? Bill Cooper even brought back his 1989 uncovered reference to the world globe's elite. And his book and his radio shows show the true history of so much. Very demonic. So the rituals, and no doubt this is being played back on the worst hacked combination. As false teachers out there. There's a lot of false teachers. I did find a really good video. Hmm. Well, I'll have a look for it later. I'll just keep this running in the meantime and plugged in. Would have been hacked. Demonic entities. Stupid things. Looking for the songs.
Throughout the course of history, there have been periods when mankind made rapid advances. And then there are those other, much more numerous times that remain rather unnoticed as transitory periods. Now, at the dawn of the third millennium, how will this age be judged by posterity? And more importantly, what form will that posterity take? What kind of judgment will it be capable of? For soon, much sooner than we anticipate, mankind as we currently know it might radically change. Burn, baby, burn! Something new is emerging. While people have talked about global peace, the end of history, and the disappearance of ideologies, an army of scientists around the world has continued working in their laboratories. The impact of this work is now slowly surfacing. Technology is about to take over the torch of history and will guide us to a new era. The disparate activities of scientists in the fields of genetics, robotics, artificial intelligence, bionics, and nanotechnology seem to be converging towards one goal: to transcend human limits. It will lead us inexorably towards a transhuman age, an age when more evolved species will leave mankind behind as a fossil in history.
sharing. Right, I'm back. So, let me just read the comments. Oh, what a day. What a day. So, hence covering today's date. And hang on. Okay, bear with me. Alright. Use the word. There. And go back to the comments. What's too long? So, now I'm just going to check the video. Salam, peace, and Christ and Nazareth. Thank you. Matthew, just wanted to pop by and tell you Daniel and I are praying for all of you to continue the good work. Blessings to you, Matthew. There's always been Freemason, yeah. Okay, so there is love of darkness. So I'll place the background for me.
Versace body design? Can you imagine a Thierry Mugler body design? These individuals, the late Versace was an incredible designer. What if he was a transhuman? What if he was an artist who really wanted to combine art and science? I bet his designs for a future body would be astounding.
We really, really do want to violate human limits now, and we're getting closer and closer to the ability to do it. It's what we want.
Here we are in the brain research laboratory. Here's the brain when it was stored.
Dr. Robert White was a neurosurgeon at the Cleveland Medical Hospital in Ohio.
Now, here are some pictures.
In 1963, he performed the first experiment to keep a brain alive outside the body.
This is a human skull here. That's not real. This is a gorilla. See here, when you take the brain out and isolate it, you can take all that if you want, and you keep it alive, it'll live forever. This is a human brain, actually, and it is fixed. So no one needs to worry about it being alive. There have been many attempts throughout the world, particularly in the old Soviet Union, to take the brain out of an animal, they like the dog, for example, and keep it alive with machinery. Now you can do that with the heart, the kidney, the liver, the lung, all the other body organs, solid organs. But nobody had ever been able to do it with the brain. And part of the reason is we must remember the brain is very delicate when it comes to its blood supply. And so when we finally did it and found that this brain of a highly developed animal had brain waves, biochemistry was functioning just as it would. Now, we couldn't talk to it. We could send it electrical signals. We could show that it could actually hear and so forth, but we didn't know whether it was processing the information. But the point of it all is that that moment in time also said to us, if you can do it for the animal brain, you could do it for the human brain. This incredibly brilliant scientist, Stephen Hawking, who's an astrophysicist, actually, he is now in a wheelchair and literally speaks via a computer. And some people, perhaps unkindly, have described this wonderful man as sort of a head on a computer, basically. But he would be somebody who potentially could survive his diseased body through a total body transplant.
To prove that the brain was in fact functioning normally while in this state, Dr. White needed to undertake a second experiment, during which he succeeded in transplanting the head of a monkey onto the body of another. The creature survived for 7 days before the body rejected the head.
In the monkey experiments, these animals are as much a monkey as they were when they were in their own original body. So I would presume, and I'd go beyond that, I would be assured that the monkey personality is retained. So consciousness can be transplanted. Obviously, personality, speaking of the monkey having personality, can be transferred. And so you might ask, where did this bring us as far as the human spirit or soul goes? And I guess you could argue it can be transplanted.
We are now becoming the objects of conscious design. And the implications of that are just enormous, because until now, we've been reshaping the world around us. And we can see how dramatically it's been changing. I mean, we've really reshaped the landscape, and we've built a society, an altered society, and changed everything that's external to us. But somehow we imagined that we were going to remain the same, that we ourselves were not going to be caught up in this process. And that's not, in fact, true. We are going to remake ourselves. And it's very difficult to deal with, because it will rip free all of the anchors that have until now told us who we are as human beings.
We're at the end of a definition of what a normal human being is.
Every living thing is defined by its DNA code. The DNA is a long string consisting of 4 different molecules called A, T, C, and G, found in all living cells. So it is, in essence, a digital barcode that defines us as humans, just as it defines every other life form on this planet. Only the variety of combinations of these 4 elements makes us differ from one another. The Human Genome Project was started in 1990 as the largest technological enterprise ever, with a budget far outstripping that of the race to the moon, and involving hundreds of laboratories around the world, all with one main goal.
Fundamentally, it was about determining the complete sequence of the human genome, the 3 billion letters that make up our genetic blueprint. And we know we have the code before us. It's truly remarkable. It is a digital code. And buried within that code is information about what are all the genes necessary for making a human brain, all the genes necessary for making a human liver or the heart or any part of the human body. And now the fun stuff begins, because we get to start to crack that code, having the order of the letters in front of us. But fundamentally, it is very much a digital code.
The secret of life itself, the DNA molecule, a genetic discovery that could give man the ability to create life to specifications. With it comes the power to change evolution itself. Never have we had such opportunity, such awesome responsibility.
Change DNA structure in the lab
It's fairly straightforward and it's fairly simple. You can study a piece of DNA to unravel its function. You modify the composition and you see what the effect is on function. That's daily routine in a lab that has this technology. Going from the lab to the person to therapy, in theory, is the same thing and is as simple. In practice, it has been shown that it's a lot more difficult. And the reason why it's so difficult is not that we don't know what pieces of DNA to put in, is that we do not succeed sufficiently and at a high rate in getting these pieces of DNA in the right cells. But we have learned how to do it from nature. What is a viral infection? It's a virus that sticks to the cells, that enters the cells, and then uses the machinery of the cells to multiply itself. Now you take this virus, you cut out the pieces that are dangerous so that it will still stick and be engulfed but not develop in the cell. And then you add to this some other tools that the virus then can use to cut out the bad DNA, stick in, splice in the good DNA. This is a mechanism that is used now to do gene therapy using viruses.
The ability to tamper with our genes has obvious applications. We can change DNA to prevent or cure hereditary diseases. We can alter the DNA of donor organs that are to be used for transplants so that the body of the recipient won't reject them. The organ doesn't even need to come from a human being. It can perfectly well be that of an animal.
Pigs would be a good supply of kidneys or other organs to transplant in humans. But because of the difference between the two species, the pig kidney or the pig liver will be rejected by the human. So if you can humanize the pig kidney by putting in some human DNA, which will make the cells look a little bit more human, so that they are not rejected by the person immediately, then there's a better chance that you'll have a take. And this is trying to humanize animal tissues, and it's becoming a big industry because we need more organs.
I think increasingly we're going to start realizing that this body is not sacred. The way we are is not some kind of God-given plan. It's really a pure random accident. We take two sets of genes and we shuffle them and something comes out. Sometimes it's a wonderful product, sometimes it has a hole in the heart, sometimes it has psychosis or tendencies towards extreme anger, has addictive problems, can't concentrate, all kinds of defects. To say, oh, that's normal, that's sacred, that's good, to me is rather absurd. It's random. It's not a plan there that we're thwarting. So genetic engineering seems to be one of the most moral things we can do.
A single species is defined by the isolation of our genetics, reproductive isolation. But when you begin to take genes from different species to mix together all of the genetics that is available among all animals, and also to design new alterations to the genetics, well, reproductive isolation really doesn't have much meaning anymore. And so you can imagine all sorts of forms and that will evolve in the future.
In the future, we will be able to sculpt our bodies like living sculpture. Our bodies could be beautiful electronic designs that shimmer prismatically in the light, in the morning light, could change forms. It could become a piece of marble on one hand and then totally mutate into some fluid type of luminescent snake-like quality. After all, the body is an extension of fashion.
You can rearrange the human body and try to make humans fly, even though humans are very heavy. And some mammals fly, like bats fly, but they're much lighter. But it's an intriguing question because it brings up the issue of not just trying to take an injured human and returning them to normal, but taking a human and making them superhuman, making them go beyond.
Our future is not to try and hold back genetic engineering, but to try and use it in a way that best serves us. If our children can be more intelligent and healthier and live longer lives, through altering our genetics, why would we not want to do it? I mean, imagine if other children could live for 2 centuries, and if you could only live for 80 years because your parents believed that it was improper to tamper with. Same thing, if your IQ, all of your classmates were much, much brighter because there had been sort of some biological or genetic manipulation that was possible. You'd feel very angry about this.
Once we know exactly how our DNA code functions, we will be able to enhance our bodies. Human life will improve from one generation to the next as we control and accelerate natural evolution. But a rival to mankind is appearing on the horizon, a rival that is evolving much faster.
Are people becoming obsolete? A giant electronic brain is cogitating at the University of Pennsylvania. Simulate a vacuum tube, like your radio, add up a column of figures a yard long in a second. It's the world's first electronic computer. Right now, it's solving mathematical problems for the U.S. Army, but who knows? Someday a machine like this may check up on your income tax.
So imagine the human abilities as kind of a landscape with some peaks, which are the things we do well, and some valleys, which are the things we do really, really badly. There are things that we do extremely well, which are things that were important in our survival for most of our evolutionary history, things like moving around and socially interacting and perceiving the world. And there are things that we have only recently learned how to do, things like general reasoning. An extreme example is arithmetic, where we are very, very, very inefficient. Computers are different. They are universal machines. With an efficient program, they can do almost any one of these tasks equally well in some abstract informational sense. So the skill of computers can be likened to a water level that's
University
uniform.
of Pittsburgh
The water level is rising.
in America.
And it's rising at a rate that is about 10 million times faster. That and a number of other calculations lead me to believe that the highest peaks will be covered by this rising flood in less than 50 years. But once the level of computer competence has risen beyond the best human engineers, then there won't be any human engineers. There will be robotic or computer engineers.
We might one day duplicate man, his form, his body, lifelike appearance.
Non-biological intelligence is growing exponentially. Or if it's growing at such a slow rate that it's not noticeable. Which is why non-biological intelligence ultimately will become dominant.
Yeah, right. So it's 101. 100, 010, or 001. Yeah, that's all.
Will computers ever become conscious beings? Computers calculate using zeros and ones. Therefore, many people, among them some scientists, believe that they will never become more than sophisticated calculation machines.
The great scientist, Professor Frankenstein, when his monster moved for the first time, without knowing it, he spoke of the absolute distinction between the artificial brain and the human brain. When he said, "It's alive." It's alive. It's alive. It's alive. It's alive.
So the difference between biological and artificial intelligence can be summed up in one word: life. At least that's what Dr. White believes. It is indeed hard to imagine that one day digital machines created by us will have consciousness.
Ultimately, it literally gets confused until ultimately it falls over onto its butt.
But then, why do we think of ourselves defined by a digital code, our DNA code? The approach used today in building artificial intelligence is not to try to program conscious beings, but instead to let those robots learn by themselves, to acquire knowledge step by step, just as we do.
There's no actual programming done in these things. What we do is we create a neural topology, like the way that our nervous network is designed, with the brain on top and all those little tendrils that go to all our muscles. And then what happens is that because there's no other solution for it, when this thing powers on, it learns to walk. You can actually watch it. When it comes up, it goes completely crazy. Okay? And all its legs, they comes up in a state of epileptic fit. And then it winds up being able to figure its way out. And as you watch, yeah, it just learned to walk. So it programmed itself in a very short period of time. Most people have always assumed that you're supposed to build a brain and then sort of like a body will fall out of it, right? The thing is, of course, is that well over half the species on the planet have no brain to speak of at all, but they manage to survive and move around very well and very effectively. So what we've done is we've tried to evolve things from the bottom up. And in the process, we have not yet evolved brains, but we have managed to evolve very effective nervous systems.
Self-organizing systems such as neural networks can yield remarkable results. Carl Sims made a software program of small cubic creatures that were able to evolve. Those that moved the fastest got the right to procreate. But there was always random change built into their program, into their genes, so to speak, in order to make them evolve. And Sims watched the strange creatures that appeared on his computer screen. He also let them compete for a green cube. Then, something extraordinary happened that wasn't programmed. One of the creatures jumped over the green cube and attacked its competitor before going for the cube. Evolution had produced a creature that was the most able to compete, and therefore to survive. It was just a software program, but one that organized itself. One day, very powerful computers may surprise us.
First we say that if a computer could play chess, then it would think like us. And then we get a computer to play chess and we say, that's really not thinking. And the answer is that we don't really know what thinking is. I would argue that machines do a pretty good job right now at thinking. And they don't do as good a job at creating, although we don't really know what creating is. And they don't do a very good job at having a soul, but we don't really know what a soul is. But when we can define it, they do a pretty good job at doing it.
And the freemasons.
I love you. Aw, he say he loves me. I love you.
If we give machines a body, if we build embodied entities, if we let them right from the start being part of a community, if we make them learn interacting with us, learning to distinguish between themselves and the environment, learning to then automatically things like love and stuff like that will emerge. A baby, a newborn baby, doesn't have those values at all. It learns by interacting with its parents, its community.
Is it love that these robots will learn once they become intelligent? Will they
overcorrect too much, and it'll be able to stabilize it in a wide variety of conditions. I think I've programmed like a 50 knot crosswind into this one. It was what it looks like. And you can see it, the aircraft, when it hits one of these crosswinds, how it begins to oscillate. The oldest dish that I've had is 2 years. And the only reason why that dish from Tech to Georgia Tech, each dish has from another dish. They're demanding though. You have to feed them once a week.
You can find out more. Because 1968, they knew full well the transhumanism by 2050 is going to take place. And you will see other videos linked to this, and documentaries, and reference further to this. Ultimate agenda. Never ceases to amaze. I've been born and bred from centuries ago for humanity and transhumanism. And transhumanists want to upload their brain to supercomputers. Well, are they part of the fraternity with the demonic entities linked to the Druids and the occults? That is one theory. Seems a very horrific, doesn't it, future for humanity. But here we are living and breathing, and children being sacrificed on today and every other day, allegedly. Go and educateyourself.org on the website, streaming across. Look into Freemasonry, look into the history of the occultists and the Satanists. End of days. I had suspicion for a while that the technology side was overtaking humanity, but mainly on sort of in England, for example, public services. So hacking into the brain of a neurologist, Neuralink, the brain focus, targeting, experimenting on innocent individuals, subject known the target individual. Now, mind control is nothing new, but one could go into that, excuse me, further, and interlinked with history. Gene, you heard earlier in that brief information there, the video, of the gene therapy, the mixing and dicing of gene. You might say, well, that's nothing really to do, you know, the Freemasonry subject on this channel today. But the fact is that do you need to be a member of the fraternity to get your research funding for this type of technology? Know how to create the balance of the spirit in the soul, of the human soul, who's not part of the fraternities, who's not sold the souls out. And where did, in history to date, how did this advanced technology come to fruition? And that's one where we are to date. It's very important to look in, for example, the book of Matthew chapter 24 in the King James Bible version. The temple and the false god is transhumanist technology. Maybe. They wish to erect within the human temple. Interesting. The The disassociation of human body, isolating. And that reminds me of a movie I saw many moons ago, known as Mars Attack. And in that script of that movie was to siphon the head off a human head onto animal heads, animal bodies, correction. And that movie was meant to be a comedy, but when you look behind it, and here we are now with advancement of AI and technology, who would really want to live forever, upload to super quantum computer systems? And why do you think the 5G technology and more frequencies, scalar waves, etc. is about? Worldwide and developed. Is that affecting the human body? Is that digitized, Internet of Things, digital world of things? Is that what's affecting people's bodies and they're falling ill? Is the offer of a you-know-what medical service going on in the world past 2 years? Has that got any links to this future of this genetics changes, alterations of the human body? For the transhumanist, the demonic entities in these bodies of men and women designing this technology even more advanced than perhaps they're letting on to the public, to create, as you just heard briefly, linking up, changing, altering the natural human body to be like a machine, to be half man, half machine. Transhumanism. So, for those that randomly think that's a great idea and I want to live forever and upload my consciousness, my intellect, brain, the information up to a computer. Well, the testing from a while ago has to be done, not just on animals. They used it on human individuals. And the mentality and mindsets and testing out what kind of capabilities a body would endure. So on the NK Ultra subject of educateyourself.org website, you might want to investigate who the Committee of 300 is, who the 13 bloodline families are, and who was really the authors. One may question. Jesus, King James Bible version. You see, if you don't have a soul, the spirit within the human body, you're taken over by the demonic entities. That's just one. You see, when the true birth of Christ, which is not December the 25th of a particular year, there's no such date or evidence of the birth of Christ, Lord Jesus Christ, our Saviour. So the demons, demonic side of life, that's where it's headed. Demons are after souls of the end of these times and the transhumanism. And literally, if you really don't even have an indication of that, then it's up to you. Now, there's also natural phenomena. Isn't there prophesied in the book of Revelations that there is going to be wars, rumours of wars, famines, earthquakes, weather changes, financial, well, maybe not financial, but that's in the pipeline too. So, someone says uploaded what I'm aware of at 7:30 UK time PM. I'm now just going to find what I just noticed. Bear with me. The times of the lanterns and the crows of phoenix and the falcon are all involved in this, you see. So anybody can research the history of the rituals. Now, a call for not uprising YouTube channel listen to this. So as I keep hacking the phone for now, it's important to research this information.
Hi everyone, this is Jeff P. December 21st, 2021. Remember that last video of the eclipsing planet in front of the sun? Some of you said you couldn't see it. Why would they hide such a thing? Well, number one, they wouldn't want mass panic control. They don't want you to panic until they're ready for you to panic by putting martial law into place. Okay? It's actually, and it would go against the narrative of global warming crap that they've been putting all along. It's not carbon, people. It's these planets coming in. It's the reason for the Palma volcano and the strange weather and all the earthquakes, like the one we got off the coast of California. So, the planet I'm trying to show you is this one right here, right as these clouds clear. And the direction and the speed of this planet is exactly recaptured over Washington, D.C., from right to left. So,
Planet X cover as well. Planet X.
And the other thing I thought was actually quite stunning, but for the lack of views, I thought it was, was this hexagonal cloud right here. Okay, that is not normal either. That is because part of the sun simulator. You see those straight edges here, right, shining through a cloud? And then when we go to play this video, this is the best daytime view of a planet I've seen ever. And here we could see the bottom edge of this eclipsing planet with the sun simulator shining like the sun while the real one gets eclipsed for mass panic control. And there it is. This is it right here. Being hidden by the clouds on the top part right here. Approximately probably this size. Now we're going to see matching footage over Washington, D.C., which the cameras are now offline. We could watch the same travel speed as it transitions in front of our sun. Now we got a nighttime catch of this. Let's watch. This footage was caught to you by Christ is Coming Soon channel. I'll leave a link in the description box. I pre-recorded it for speed's sake. So let's watch what happened on December 15th behind the Washington Monument on a camera which is offline. Isn't that interesting? All right. So let's watch this footage. Traveling Now we got a nice clear bead on these two objects as they transition from right to left at the same speed that John Boy had captured. A planet, I believe it's Moon, traveling behind the Washington Monument, traveling right to left, not up and down like a moon would. So any troll, I don't think they'd be stupid enough to insult your intelligence, although they think you're so stupid that they go, oh, that's a moon. Yeah. Since when does a moon go right to left? Doesn't it just set like go up and down on the horizon? And that's what caught my attention. I don't post on this ridiculously obvious that these two objects are traveling from right to left. This one here is quite visible. This one here is a little darker. It's not as lit. But clearly, if I scroll back and forth, there you will see this object traveling. Sorry, the guy's moving his camera around. I'm trying to draw a picture of it. Stopped it. All right, I'm going to leave my big ugly circle in there for a second. And there it is. This object. Right here. I don't see how you can't see that. I don't see how you can't see this circle.
All right, here we go. Listen, my name is John Hoyt, and I have to film this tonight over the TV camera I have using my computer, and I check it every night to see if it's turned off about midnight, and this is what I saw about an hour later. You see the two planets, one here, a large one, and this is like a moon size. Problem is, they're going from here, and they've all traveled here.
Isn't that interesting?
They're going from here, and they've all traveled here. You'll see more as it goes behind the Washington Monument. We see the being right here. And that's the gold one. The wreath is right here. It shows a good photo. This is on my laptop, as I said in that film before. This is part two. The other part of it.
6 days ago, 4 days ago. Sun shows up above some new blue. You see, this individual's only put up with us 6 days ago. Because he's been capturing over the past 3 years as well, right, JP? So, 9 days ago, a JP, i.e. YouTube channel, a crip scene finally captured in Tennessee.
Hello everyone, this is Jeff P. It is December 12, 2021, and I have some phenomenal, epic catches on the John Boy channel. I believe he doesn't even know just how fantastic of a catch he has. This is one of the catch of the century, and I'm just going to play it on my YouTube channel. So I downloaded his Dimensional Craft, which is pretty stunning. But this eclipse in the sun, I don't. Let me show you the deception.
Now let me go back to that JP. John Boy is on the YouTube channel. Let me just see the.
Everyone, this is JP. It is December 12th, 2021. And I have some phenomenal, epic catches on the John Boy channel. I believe he doesn't even know just how fantastic of a catch he has. This is one of the catch of the century. And I'm just going to play it on my YouTube channel. So I downloaded his Dimensional Craft, which is pretty stunning. But this eclipse in the sun, let me show you the deception in our skies and how this eclipsed. So I record his videos. I'll leave the link in the description box of John Boy's channel. Please copy, like, and share this video and subscribe to John Boy. So let's play those videos. So before we get into what we're looking at, our sun was eclipsed, and that's what John Boy captured. We have our Earth. We have a sun simulator that orbits around our Earth in a heliosynchronous orbit, always in front of the sun. Here is our eclipsing planet that you're about to see. Many times you've seen shadows of the planets in some of my channels, but now we're actually going to see the very planet itself, I believe, and even some crater or surface-like stuff as well. It's coming. It's quite stunning. And with that out of the way, you can watch my Why Do We Have a Sun Simulator? It's to keep the sun shining like the sun while the real one is being eclipsed. This yellow sun that we have with a white sun simulator always in front of it. More on those later. Here is an example. This was from Nigel's view of things. Here we have a planetary shadow where the cloaked craft that are always following in front of these things, trying to hide what you're looking at right now over the coast of Japan. This was brought to you by Nigel's view of things on his channel. And let's just get into this eclipse without any further ado. And there's quite so many things that are amazing in this video. Let me just pause this here. Here we go. First thing that really sticks out here is this hexagonal thing that is smack in front of the sun. Let's show you this hexagonal object right here. You can see this hexagonal light. Okay, here, hexagonal, all right? And here we can see it maintaining its hexagonal shape during this eclipse. And this cloaked planet, cloaked UFO ship, which follow this entire system with our cloud technology. But the planet, which is now coming into view, is going to be right here. So let me watch, and there it is. This massive planet for your very eyes comes into view, and here we can even make out what appears to be some kind of a crater.
Yeah.
It looks like a giant moon passing in front of this, right in front of the sun. And there it is. This, I believe, is the very planet itself, not even a shadow. And there it is. Look at that.
Yeah, because
and look at this craft that comes down here.
It's cloaking.
Clearly defined edges here. To maintain, folks, there are no straight lines in nature. And look again, look at this hexagonal light that is in front of the sun simulator. And there is the very sun simulator right in the center itself, shining like the sun while the real one's being eclipsed. And here comes the passing planet right before your very eyes. Folks, I got a feeling it's going to get clearer than that. And we believe another planet right here.
Back to me again.
You can see it coming up. And this is what they're hiding. Wow. And Next, I would like to show you another object that comes down from the top right here. You can see the bottom edge as the sun gets eclipsed. Oh, there's multiple planets out there. This must be, I don't think it's Planet X.
So that happened. Doesn't bother me anymore. It's amazing, isn't it? The transhumanism agenda and the incoming planets or planet world, planet Earth, planet world, whatever you want to call it. They're right above us there as well. So you think of transhumanism, they're going to create the new humanity at a point of destruction by the inland planet. And so within the Luciferian agendas and their rituals, we're looking for souls to take as well. I'm not saying everyone that wants to be a Freemason is Luciferian, so the souls out, because they may not know the darker agenda. And you always have that possibility. But one needs to research of the summer solstice in history, like today. goes on. Would be. Yeah. Didn't think it used to fit in my oven. No longer fit in my intriguing. Wow. That surprises. Sure, no, that surprises. Not pictures of the why do we need human sacrificing rituals, animals, children? Just need to look at the history and why does it still go on? And that's intriguing. Well, not intriguing is one word. Demonic history to that world. You like to say, I'm just not over. Okay, what do you observing life. Life is a perception. It's difficult. It's one big perception. What is it? The inbound planet, it seems to add up actually. You've got the inbound planetary system and transhumanism, the certain subjects, the certain things happening. Turning the human into a machine, the genetics and other technologies. Want to alterate the genes and the DNA. And you think, yeah, I want to be forever. Get out of this human form. Upgrade my brain, my consciousness, have a new body. But it won't be a human body or a robotic connection. And then why would they need to roll out a 5G technology advancement? You think it's for mobile phones, new generation technology that way. Until you see a documentary and you find that's not the true purpose. It's not really a documentary about mobile phones. Is of an insider, industry insider they call it. Well, how powerful information that is. Oops, I won't go into Amazon. I'm why do you have to monitor people that has knowledge, information, knowledge? That pretty well. Well, I have been to. Love talk radio. Mind control. I won't go into that right now. You just want to support the Windows process when it's something on it. You will only tell by things that promote it or not. Just sharing some information. The hacking still goes on because of the justin on it. They just like hidden traps in freemasonry, accult, of the day is a really place. Today's date, but educate yourself in the world, look it up, if you know the freemasonry. And look up what the mental source is about. If one cares to know. Oh, Tanya, hello. You see the hacking I've got in a phone Susan that we didn't do. Yeah, that was an interview. Hold on. I'm doing hacking. Oh, Tanya. Yeah, that was with Robert Duncan. Yeah, we heard that. Yeah, Robert Duncan was a good one, wasn't it? Where was it being played? It's someone's channel, wasn't it? I was streaming some of it, I think. Can't remember now. How are you? Can you hear me alright? Because I cut my phone a lot of times. Oh, my ears, the radiation. Okay. Hi. Are you so hot over there in Australia? Very hot. Very hot. Let me just see if I set up my phone. Yeah, it's very hot. Is it? What sort of temperature? Is it morning time for you over there? It's evening time here. Why do people celebrate Christmas with pagan rituals? I don't do the Christmas and stuff, but if you do have Christmas, best you can do in the circumstances. My son doesn't even contact me, i.e. I found his new channel, Twitter channel, this morning AM. Yeah, they woke me up early. I fell back to sleep late, about 12-ish, 1 o'clock. Oh, so I blocked out all the perpetrators. You see that photo where the typical demonic, it is the winter solstice where the rampart. They're sacrificing freemasonry, the demonic program. And I was just showing the transhumanism, one of the videos, if people can go and check it out. Did you get any sleep? So, let me look at this audio. I'll play in the background. You just stop this. Right, so next up, mind control warfare called hypnotic, not hypnotic, I pronounce it. It's on Talk Block Radio. Scott Hadden on spirituality. An audio. It's quite detailed. Now, if my phone don't get hacked, you'll be able to hear it. I think it might be important on the New World Order. See, there is a subject is done. If not, I'll go back to what I've seen. Now, I'll stick to what this particular link is done. On the radio, Talk Block Radio. So it's an audio. Here we go. Not much time, so
Scott Answer Network. Well, welcome to Scott Answer Network. On Tuesdays and Thursdays, I do the show by myself, and of course on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Friday on Tinfoil Hat Club with Julie Flores. And we're really bringing a lot of things to light about false flags, those things that happen in Orlando. So if you haven't heard the shows, I would recommend that you do that. And of course, you can go to that through my website at scottanswer.org. Now, in the introduction, you heard some very strange noises. Now, if you were listening prior a few months ago, that was a recording that I did of a particular meeting down in southern Idaho. And when I came back to do the editing of it, that's what I found on one of the channels. And if you listen to it, you can hear the shrieks and the cries as if we're listening to the spirit realm of all the particular demonics. And the particular area that I was at where that was done, there were several in the turn of the century that at one time I believe was into the Luciferian doctrine. So the particular facility I was in, I believe, is cursed. And so I think I captured that. So just reminding everyone, too, that I have the YouTube channel, Scott Answer Network, of course, the blog talk show that you're listening to now, and then again with the Tinfoil Hat Club. Now, the reason that we went that route, what I found on one of the channels, Julie and I have come to a point where we've been witnessing and helping and trying to deal with Christians and their unbelief about the spirit realm. And for me, this is my 16th year. And there's a point in time where we shake the dust off our feet and move on. Now, I say that because of the opposition against those things we were commanded to do. The Great Commission of Jesus Christ tells us to cast out demons, heal the sick, set the captives free, make disciples of all men, along with everything that has to do with fighting evil. And so I've been fighting evil for a very long time, hand to hand, basically. and I'm going to continue, but we're also going to reach out to the world, reach out to the lost, reach out to the occult, reach out to those who are basically, in a position where they don't believe Christianity. And the reason they don't believe Christianity is because there's no power in the church. There's no power in the church because the true works of the Lord are not being done. They're not being done because of the false doctrines that came down through Zionism, through the Illuminati, through the reptilians, all the way back to a Babylonian system that has infiltrated the church. Now, what I mean by that is that we either believe what Jesus told us or we don't. Now, many have sold their birthright and have followed those things that would put Israel first. And I'm sorry, that's not the case. Jesus died to pay for you, okay? You've been bought with the price of the blood of Jesus, and now you have a job to do. And so by putting a nation of people who say they are Jews but are not, puts you in a position where you have rejected what Jesus did on the cross, period. End of conversation. How I know this? Because most of you are loaded with demons. Most of you have curses. It is unbelievable, the sickness within the church. And I know this again because I've been doing this for a very long time. And I have taught, I have wrote books, articles, YouTube, been a guest on other shows, done deliverance, gone and cleaned out houses, you name it. And so now it's time, because the days are short, that if you believe that you do not have demons, if you believe that the doctrine of demons has brought into the church is true, then I haven't got time for you. Now, I will teach on this channel because there are those who do understand and there are those who are listening. And God bless you for it. That means the Holy Spirit's speaking to you. You know the difference. You know right from wrong. You know that you cannot serve two masters, because unfortunately that's what the church is doing. And since we know that you will love one and hate the other, I can only assume that they hate Jesus. Now, I live in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, which is a command center, basically the capital of witches, Satanists, Illuminatis, reptilians. I think I got one in the parking lot here. I might just go out here with a can of Raid and see what I can do in a little bit. But this is also a place that people flock to for honeymoons. This is a vacation spot. The Ironman, which will be here coming Sunday, that's the triathlon or the Ironman, the full. And a couple years ago, we had a death of one of the swimmers. And I never did hear exactly the full story on that. So hopefully this Ironman coming, because it's like 2,000 people hitting the water. If you've ever done an Ironman or a triathlon or something, my hat's off to you. You got some stank, because that's a tough one. That's why they call it that. This one in particular is the precursor for the Hawaiian, put on by the evil Ford Motor Company. I say evil because Ford himself was a sympathizer, was one of the Illuminati funders for World War II for the Nazis. He actually built vehicles that they used. Okay? So, again, that would make him a traitor. Now, Spokane, Washington is not too far from me, and it too is a very stronghold with the demonic. And I've been dealing with a lot of cases that have been very severe lately, and I've coming to an understanding that mostly what I have seen over the years, when I pray for someone a couple of times, 90% of the demons come out. There may be a straggler or two, and it's pretty easy to get rid of them. But it's kind of like pulling teeth now. And so something else is going along with this. I think that there's some unrepented sin that can happen. There may be a generational curse that we overlook. But I believe that there's a implementation of psychotronics. There is a second or a third force being hurled onto us, both Christian and non-Christian, and in that comes all kinds of issues that mimic demonization. So that's one of the reasons I want to bring this up. Now, I want to also bring out the fact that being here in Idaho, that southern Idaho is one of the target areas
for refugees, Muslim refugees. Now, in Twin Falls, which is south of Boise, it's more towards Utah, down in the basically the southeastern area towards Montana and Utah, and in that area. And so what happened there a few weeks back was that a 4-year-old was molested by three Muslim boys.
Right.
A 4-year-old. Now, excuse me, there's rape, there's molestation, and then there's a whole other category. And certainly not taken away from anyone that has dealt this, because that's part of my ministry, is helping both men and women who have been raped, especially as children, come through that terrible situation. Now, I want everyone to understand that anybody that could ever think that this is okay is demon possessed. Now, as children, they can be under the curse of the father, okay? And at a certain age, there's one of the boys here is supposed to be a teen. There's an age of accountability. So I would assume that this individual has now been handed over to Satan completely, because again, anyone that would do something to a child. Now, because of the younger ages, they apparently weren't capable of performing, and so in their frustration, they ended up urinating on the child. Now, the older one used a cell phone to record. Now, listen to me. Do you understand what's happening out there? Do you understand what's happening to our children and our grandchildren? I place Obama completely to hold him responsible for this. So this child, then what they did is they recorded it. When the grandmother found out what was going on, then contacted the mother, and the mother managed to get the phone. So they have the documentation, and yet this took place back on the 2nd of June. No arrests have been made. No charges have been filed. Now, excuse me. When I was an officer and did police work down in Arizona, the Arizona Revised Statute, Title 13, Criminal Code, that even the child would be arrested for such acts. When one exposes oneself, when one violates another individual, it is criminal. And regardless of the ages, there needs to be accountability. There needs to be an act of law that comes in to protect the child. And so at this point, I can only assume that because of Obama and his cronies, those of the reptilian nature, the seed of Satan, that in this defilement of this child, that as we noted in the police report, that the father, when he came home to the boys, he high-fived them for their acts. Okay, how does that happen? I know when I was a kid, if I did something wrong, I was terrified of my father coming home. Do you understand the depravity, the depths of Satan that this society has gone to? Now,
hey John,
my heart goes out to this family and this child. This child has received demons. This child now has multiple personalities, is fractured, has alters, and this child is not going to be the same unless it goes through deliverance with the healing powers of Jesus Christ and the blood to remove demons. And of course, this church, now that's a high Mormon area too, by the way.
Okay.
That whole area is very strong in Mormonism. And don't think that's by accident that Obama set the stage for all these refugees down there, because the fight's going to be on. So I would imagine that even though Mormonism is based in the Masonic, based in those things that are not of Christianity, there's still a certain amount of conservatism. Okay, and so this will be interesting to see what happens down here. But the very fact that because when you have a town like that, the police officers are going to be they're going to be Mormon. That's the way it was in Mesa, Arizona. There was a time you didn't own a store, you weren't a police officer unless you were Mormon, because the temple's down there. And of course, they're not that far from Utah, so that whole area was a Mormon settlement. So it'll be interesting to see how this turns out. But there's an estimated 50 refugees down there. And by the way, the local judge has sealed the files. See, whenever they seal a file, they're hiding something. And so again, this is all by plan to cause an uproar, and it will be interesting to see what the Mormons do.
Yeah.
Okay? because you can only push somebody so far. I'm not supporting Mormonism, but the conservative side of the whole thing may prove to be detrimental to these morons down here who have assaulted a child. All right. Now, again, I want to mention to everyone, thank you for supporting this ministry. This has not been an easy road. Even the facility that I'm in here isn't of the best. I'm doing the best I can with what I got, and I'm going to continue. So I do want to thank you for those who've been supporting me, because I would not be here if it hadn't been for you. And the Tinfoil Hat Club is the same thing. We're reaching to the lost, and that's what we've been called to do, and that's what we will continue to do. Now, let me get into the subject tonight, mind control warfare called psychotronics. Now, psychotronics was coined by using electronic means to influence the human mind, the brain. Okay, it's electronic mind control. Now, in this mind control, you can put things in and you can take things out. And there's several patents, including that have filed this, the military and private sectors, which most likely belong to those in the Illuminati. Someone's always enjoying it. Same thing with HARP, by the way. HARP actually was started by an individual who was private, who was somebody interested in radio engineering, a ham radio operator, acquired some property up there, was having fun doing, we call it an antenna farm, was just enjoying life, and they weren't too far from one of the military facilities up there that have to do with first alert when it comes to the nuclear attacks. And I'm sure that they were monitoring and realizing that what this individual was doing was actually causing aurora borealis and other things, phenomena, to take place in that area. And they came in and basically took it away from them. And so hence we have weather wars, we have HARP, we have those things that are now in the control of nations that only wish to bring harm, not to embetter man. Where this individual who first started out was probably just like any ham radio operator, just enjoying his hobby, and so it was commandeered away from. Now, when it comes to these technologies, we have to understand that people can hear voices, they can have different feelings, emotions, they can experience things in their bodies. They can even be commanded and triggered if they are, let's say, satanic ritually abused under monarch control or any of these others. There can be key things done to them that cause them to behave in certain ways, a part of the programming. Now, subliminal messaging can be that as well, through whether it's TV, radio, internet, whatever the means of bringing the media to an individual, and whatever spectrum that can take place where you can have an individual react. Now, in this reaction, or in this situation that the body is out of control, the body is not in control. You're not in control of your mind. There's the saying, don't believe everything that you think, because of the injecting of those things of third parties. So you can actually, your visual, you can see things. Otherwise, you close your eyes and you'll see things that you're going, what in the world? I mean, you may have an imagination anyways, but now you've got things being injected, okay? We refer to that sometimes as the mind's eye. Now, that can be altered. Now, also, too, they can see what you see. They can see what you see. Now, in order for that to take place, the receivers, are the ways they transmit a signal out. They stimulate the brain, the cortexes, to then become concentrated on that particular thing that they want to see. But in order to take that, they have to be able to receive it. And it's in that receiving that there must be some devices that are in close proximity. Okay? Now, that can also be a chip implant. Now, it doesn't mean that the individuals at the time will see in real time. It may mean the chip downloads the data from the brain being interpreted by the eyes, because that's actually what's taking place. Your eyes aren't actually seeing something, you see it and you say, well, that's a cup. Well, because, when you were raised, you then knew that was a cup. And so they got put into your memory. Okay, does that make sense? So then you now look at this and always know that's a cup. I know that's a stapler. I know this is a microphone in front of me. But there was a point in time in my life I didn't know what those were. And so that was a learn motion, a learned process put into memory, and therefore when I see it, then I recognize it. So with the reception that comes from the brain through the nervous system in or close proximity, because the chip could actually be in the TMJ area on your jaw, and you can have them in various other places, but because of close proximity, the small amount of radio waves then can be stored into a chip. Now, as it's being stored into the chip, it's held onto until you go somewhere, and or your phone is then the receiver and it transfers the data, or you go to a store, or you go get your scan there at the airport when you're getting ready to get on your flight, and then there's a download, okay? There's a transfer of data. So if they're doing it real time, then that means there's a transceiver or a receiver that's close by that's getting real time. If you are away from that, then it downloads into that chip and is held in memory until it can be downloaded later. Now, that means that if you're married and you're enjoying a life with your wife, that is, two people coming together, then everything's recorded, including the emotions, including the feelings, including the visual, including the hearing. Everything is done. See, this is a infiltration of society. This is a human rights violation. We have the right to privacy. We have the right to think as God gave it to us. We have a right to move forward and with God's direction. And now we're being altered. Of course, now we know that this is also part of the beast system. So with them being able to see and hear what you see and hear, nothing is secret anymore. Now, your conversations that you have with people on the phone can be recorded through the cell phone. We know NSA is already doing that. But again, your mind can do the very same thing. Now, smart technology, I didn't get into that. Your smart meters, your Samsung Smart TV, by the way, can also be one of those devices for download. Can also be one of those devices for real-time imaging, real-time reception. So that's nothing to sneeze at. That is pretty serious stuff. People were buying smart TVs left and right. In fact, Julie had bought a TV recently, and she made sure that it was not a smart TV, and apparently the saleswoman tried to talk her into it otherwise. Now, smart meters, you're familiar with Bluetooth. You're familiar with Wi-Fi, okay? But what we have with smart meters, meaning the electrical meter outside that's tied to your power, one, it can upload through power, but in and itself is what we call a duplexer, a transceiver. It's capable of transmitting and receiving. It too also has memory storage. So it can act like a Bluetooth device. It can act like a Wi-Fi device. Now, we know that Bluetooth and Wi-Fi basically are in the microwave range, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that. But again, what they can do is what we call data bursts. So otherwise it can take the data, and once it gets something retained within a period of time, or maybe there's something key that it's looking for that it's been programmed, and then boom, sends it out. Okay? Now, even some of these smart meters are so powerful that those signals can be received 30 miles away. Now, when you have microwave, and you have a microwave that is what we refer to as omnidirectional, otherwise that they need to do that. Microwave is normally line of sight, normally focused to go one direction. But when you have something that's omnidirectional, you have something like the cell phone. And when you have something that's omnidirectional that goes in all directions, then that means the microwaves are going in all directions. And so if you're in an apartment complex and you happen to be the one who's residing in your residence, the particular apartment, and on the outside is the main service entrance, which means where all the electrical meters are, you can have 10, 20, 30 meters on your wall being bombarded. You could probably hang popcorn on that wall and pop it. I've seen demonstrations where 3 cell phones were placed around a kernel, and then they all rang the phone, and sure enough, the kernel popped. So this is not a good situation, and so if that's the situation and you're in, and you're feeling sick, you're feeling emotions, you're feeling even mental illness, hearing voices, sleep deprivation, all of these different things can come from the smart meters. People all over the country are complaining about them. Some power companies are complying and taking them out. Some aren't. Some are forcing. They're trying to pass laws that force you to have them all the time. And again, this is a crime against humanity, because subjecting us to this microwave is a slow, soft kill. Now, I want to get more into that. I've got a lot of data here. I may end up going the 2 hours. I don't know. I might split it up. We'll just see how it goes. Now, let me define radio frequency, microwave, ELF, VHF, UHF. These terms are very common to those that are in the industry of communications, even ham radio operators, even people that have some idea what's going on out there, because your old TV was VHF, UHF. You might remember, channels 2 through, I think it was 12 or 13, and then that was VHF, and then UHF was 14 and up. You notice I didn't say channel 1. Channel 1 was allocated by the Federal Communications to be the test channel. So channel 1 was actually the first broadcast off of the Empire State Building in New York back when they first started these transmissions. And then when the manufacturers of TVs and so forth wanted to jump on the bandwagon and start producing, they had to have some way to test what they built. And so they took away channel 1, and that became the test channel. That's why your old TV never had a channel 1 unless you had a really old set. So if you had a channel 1, you'd probably see some bizarre things because it was the manufacturers testing their stuff. Now, all of this falls in what we refer to as the electromagnetic spectrum. Now, what that means that you can have magnetic influences or you can have electromagnetic influences. You can pass currents, you can spike. Otherwise, like the old spark gap generator, when a ship was in trouble in the old days and they had their transmitters, that was a spark gap transmitter, and all it could do was microwave, and basically what it did is it sent out a static noise charge that was received by another radio or receiver, and they would just hear it not necessarily as dashes and dots because it was just noise, but it was the length of it, whether it was a dot or a dash. Okay. So a lot of the down ships, people used to think that SOS was save our ship, but it actually has some other meanings. Now, in this electromagnetic spectrum, from one end to the other, we have radio waves, which also can be down into what we call the ELF, and some of you have already heard ELF, extremely low frequency, and VLF, very low frequency. This is used commonly by the military or the Navy for submarines, mostly those subs that are deep down in the waters, underneath the polar caps. Though the communication at that frequency, because it's not very efficient, they have to use tens of thousands, even a gigawatt of power to transmit to these subs. But it also is a spectrum that from 10 hertz to 20,000 hertz is also in the hearing range. Now you can hear because there's pressure. I tap on the table and it vibrates the table and it creates a pressure through the sound, through the air, and your ear through the hammer, anvil, stirrup to the eardrum to the cochlea and then to the brain is defining the pressure. That's all that it's doing. And the pressure at what amplitude, otherwise how loud it is, and what frequency, how rapid the pressure is. And between the two, you can distinguish a note, you can distinguish verbal commands, all different things. So there is a difference, even though it's in the same spectrum. ELF is still different because it's electromagnetic, created by either the Earth, which would be by electrical static charges such as lightning, It's Schumann resonance. It's in the 7 hertz range, and it's also very close to the body's resonance. Our bones, our flesh, we have a resonance, and this is one of the reasons that cyclotronics can be so effective, because they have determined our resonance. And I'm going to get into the mind. It's a little different, but it's basically the same concept. So through the electromagnetic spectrum, we have the ELF, as I mentioned, at one end, basically almost down to sound and just a very low frequency, and the hertz. Hertz named after a man named Hertz, who determined that there's a cycle of things, just like when I tap on the table and I make, let's say, 3 taps a second, that's 3 hertz, okay? That's all that it means. But we go all the way up to kilohertz, gigahertz, megahertz, gigahertz, and up to gamma and X-ray. Now, in the middle of the spectrum, we have visual light. Okay, we've got infrared down at 1 on the low end. We have white light that our eyes see, which show our colors, right? We have the prism, we have the light spectrum of blues and greens, the color wheel, if you're familiar with the color wheel. And then you go up higher and you start getting into ultraviolet light, which is very bad for us. That's bad for our skin, because it's getting up towards a higher frequency that is damaging to the flesh. Now, we also have those things of radiation. Now, when we talk about RADS, a radiation, otherwise atomic, nuclear detonation, RADS is a calculation of tissue damage over a period of time. So there's a RAD counting that we're never supposed to be exposed to. But Fukushima has blown that out of the water, and they raised all the limits. So all the people in California are getting hundreds of times more RADs than they normally would have, because they didn't want the alarms. So all the radiation alarms were set up high. Okay, they tweaked them up, so now they don't go off. So now you're getting what they would have never wanted you to have, and the alarms don't even tell you this. Okay, so this whole thing is another scam against us and crimes against humanity. So when you get higher up towards ultraviolet and you get into radiation, you get up towards X-ray. Now we know we don't want X-rays on us very long. You go to the dentist, you get a chest X-ray, even mammograms and all these other things, and they're finding mammograms are not good. Well, gee, duh, you're being bombarded with radiation, and your cell will mutate. Your cell, your chromosomes, because of the magnetic field is so aggressive coming through the tissue. Let's say that you are somebody who is only 110 pounds, okay? You're standing on the football field, and now you have before you 10 men that are 6'5", 275 pounds, and they're running at you as fast as they can. What do you think's going to happen? They're going to flatten you. So in reality, this is what's happening when you get an X-ray. You've got 275 pound, 6'5" guys coming through your skin as fast as they can, as hard as they can, and they're flattening you. And when you get up, you're never the same. You got brain damage, you're bleeding from every orifice in your body, you broke your bones, your organs are smashed. That's what happens. Now, your skin, as we regenerate, since our chromosomes are damaged, then the mutation of the skin now is mutated into the damaged cell. Hence, we get cancers. We get those things that God never intended us to have from the garden. So that's basically what's going on. So when you nuke your food, you put it in the microwave, you actually alter it. It's actually not chicken anymore. God knows what it is, but it isn't what you were originally going to eat. And I've mentioned before that those who work in the emergency rooms, those who deal with blood, when they analyze the blood, they can tell you whether you eat food that is microwaved, okay? So stay away from it as much as you can. I know sometimes for those who have lives that are hectic, that it's very difficult. But it may be one of the reasons your digestive system or your immune system is not quite up to par anymore, okay? So in this spectrum, from one end to the other, we have exposures that can happen to us and nothing takes place because of the lower frequencies and only the short durations. But we have long-term effects from radiations that normally wouldn't hurt us, but because it's just like you go out in the sun. Okay, I can go out in the sun for a half hour and be fine, but I stick it out there another 45 minutes to an hour, and I haven't been ready for it, you get burned, right? So it's a long-term exposure. Now, as you go up towards the higher range, towards the X-ray, the gamma, the ultraviolets, you don't need to be exposed as long. You can get bombarded in a very short period of time. Now, just below X-rays and gammas and those things, we have what we refer to as the microwave regions. Okay, ultraviolets just up in that area too, and so we can have low microwaves in amplitude, meaning the power that's put onto us, or we can have high. That's again, your microwave oven can be 500, 800, 1200 watts concentrated onto a focused area. That's pretty intense. But when you have a cell phone, you have a cell tower, you have a microwave tower, you have Wi-Fi, these things are in the microwave ranges. Now, they're going to be lower wattages, they're supposed to be, okay, but over a long period of time, then you can have the cell damage. So what does that mean? That basically means those football players didn't come at you as fast. They took their time. Maybe two ran over you, and then the other two, and then the other two, instead of the whole team at one time. So now you're getting bombarded. So the grand scheme of things is over the period of time, you basically got the same amount of exposure, okay, long-term exposure. And then we have what we call near field and far field, and I'm going to talk about that when we get into 60 hertz. Now I'm laying the base, this out for you to understand that the system that the New World Order is using against us is not a year out, is not 5 years out, it's not 10 years out, it's out now. It's in place. That means at the flip of a switch, we're in trouble. You need to understand that. Now, some of you are already in trouble with the influences of psychotronics, otherwise mind control. And as I go through this here, I want you to pay attention, because some of you have these symptoms, and these symptoms are horrible. So basically, that's the electromagnetic spectrum. Frequency, is how many pulses per second. Amplitude would mean the amount of power. Okay, and then of course the combination of the two would be determining the exposure and the damage done to you. Now we are water. People say we're 80, 90%. Actually, we're more like 60 something. And water in itself is a natural resistance to radio waves. So when radio waves come at us, it hits the water in our body. And whenever you have a resistance, you have friction. Whenever you have friction, you have heat. This is why food heats up in a microwave, because of the resistance to it. Okay, so these football players may have had a little bit of a rough time, but boy, they're making it way. They're sweating by the time they came through. Okay, but they got you. So that means that when we have microwaves applied to us, then our body temperature can actually rise. So if we have an infrared viewer that sees heat in that spectrum, infrared being below the visual spectrum of our eyes, but owls can see it, reptiles can see it. There are those species that have those sensors, the ability to see in that spectrum, but us as humans, well, what we may actually see is red towards the red spectrum, but when it gets lower, we don't. That's why these nighttime vision cameras work, because there's an infrared source being brought out, and though we don't see with our eyes, the camera, because the sensitivity in that spectrum can utilize it. Now, you don't have color resolution. You need white light to bring color out. So that's why these night cameras looks bizarre. They don't look normal, but they can see things too. That, let's say, if you were to take a picture of a woman up close, you would notice that their veins, if you take a picture of a guy and a girl side by side, you'll notice that you see the veins in women. Okay, I'm talking about somebody that doesn't necessarily have a lot of body fat. And so women's veins tend to be a little closer to the surface of the skin. This is one reason why women can tend to be a little colder when it comes, men's body heat can be a little warmer. Their veins can be a little deeper down. And these cameras will actually show that. So it's interesting, and I believe that it has medical attributes to find circulation issues. And I did work on that one time. Now, when you have radiation that comes upon you, your body can, the density of your bones, the density of your brain, the water contents can be affected in different ways. So there isn't necessarily the same effect that is from one end to the other. Okay, to make sense? Your hands, your fingers, they may not have as much fat content. And by the way, just as a side note, when I worked with tasers, those things that police carry with them that they can shoot 2 darts into a person and send anywhere from 50 to 60,000 volts and take someone down, the lockup of the body, meaning that the pulses that took place caused the body muscles to exercise, like you're